The following production is presented by League Info Site and the Credit Union Broadcast Experience, QTV.
Hello, I'm Sean Wolbert. Thank you for joining me at the CU Compliance Connection, brought to you by InfoSite. On October 28, 2013, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's International Remittance Transfer Rule takes effect. These rules have been extremely controversial, and on initial introduction, many credit unions stated they would no longer offer international remittance transfers to their members. The CFPB has made many revisions over the last 2 years and has provided an exemption and reduced the error liability. However, it's still important to understand the requirements and the amendments before the effective date of this rule. Remittance transfers are electronic transfers of funds that are more than $15 requested by a person in the United States and sent to people or companies in foreign countries. I have fielded a lot of questions since the rule was introduced in 2011, and I have to make sure you know that foreign countries include Canada and Mexico. International remittance transfers, or IRTs, include many types of international transfers, including international wire transfers, international ACH transactions, international bill pay transactions, and certain prepaid card transfers. In August 2012, the CFPB provided an exemption to the IRT rules. Credit unions are exempt from the requirements if they provide 100 or fewer remittance transfers in the previous calendar year and provide 100 or fewer remittance transfers in the current calendar year. If your credit union gets to a point where it provides more than 100 international remittance transfers in a calendar year, the rule gives you a reasonable period of time, but not to exceed 6 months, to begin complying with this regulation. The International Remittance Transfer Rule generally requires that members receive 2 disclosures. The first disclosure, known as the prepayment disclosure, is given to the member before they pay for the remittance transfer. This disclosure must list the amount of money to be transferred, the exchange rate, certain fees, including those collected by the credit union, taxes collected by the credit union, and the amount of money to be expected to be delivered abroad. Disclosure of foreign taxes and certain recipient institution fees is optional based on a recent amendment to the rule. A credit union must also provide a receipt when payment is made. The receipt must repeat the information in the prepayment disclosure. The receipt must also tell the sender the date when the money will arrive, in addition to other specific information. If an error was made on the prepayment disclosure, a corrected disclosure must be given with the receipt. Generally, all disclosed amounts must be exact. However, there are several exceptions that allow providers to estimate the applicable exchange rate, back-end fees and taxes, and total funds to be received. These exceptions include a temporary exception for credit unions and permanent exceptions for transfers to certain countries, and for certain back-end fees and taxes that are not otherwise required to be disclosed. For the exception to apply, the transfer must come from the member's account, and the credit union must be unable to determine exact amounts. For example, you may not be able to determine the exchange rate if it's set by the designated recipient's institution and you have no relationship with that institution. If estimates are permitted, you generally must use the methods described in the rule for determining estimated amounts. These exceptions are limited and temporary and will only be available for qualified transfers through July 21, 2015. There are 3 important required disclaimers that your credit union needs to include on the receipt. The first discloses a recent amendment released by the CFPB and provides the member with a notice that not all fee and taxes may have been disclosed. This safe harbor language states that the recipient may receive less due to fees charged by the recipient's bank and foreign taxes. The second discloses the member's rights for an error resolution. It notifies the member that you have a right to dispute errors in your transaction. If you think there's an error, contact us within 180 days, and that includes the credit union's phone number and email address. Finally, the member must receive notification that you can cancel for a full refund within 30 minutes of payment, unless the funds have been picked up or deposited. The rule provides many options for delivering disclosures. Generally, disclosures must be provided in writing, but can be delivered electronically if the sender requests the transfer electronically. There are even guidelines for mobile disclosures in the rules. The disclosures can also be delivered orally, but if you are providing electronic, mobile, or oral disclosures, it will be important for you to review the regulation to ensure you meet the strict requirements for delivering disclosures in these manners. One of the recent better amendments to the International Remittance Transfer Rule was a limitation on a credit union's liability if the member provides incorrect routing and account number information. These general error provisions require 5 conditions for the new exception to apply. The credit union has to demonstrate that the member provided an incorrect recipient institution identifier. For institution identifier errors, the credit union has used reasonable means to verify this identifier. The credit union gave appropriate notice to the member. The funds were deposited into the wrong account. And finally, the credit union used reasonable efforts to attempt to recover those funds. The IRT rule also provides detailed requirements a credit union must follow if an error occurs on a member's transfer. A member has 180 days to notify the credit union of an error. An error includes an incorrect amount paid by a member in connection with the remittance transfer, such as being charged more than the total shown on their receipt. A computational or bookkeeping error made by the provider relating to the remittance transfer, such as miscalculating the amount the recipient will receive. Failure to make available a designated recipient the amount of currency disclosed to the sender, and failure to make the funds available by the disclosed date of availability, including non-delivery of the funds. If an error occurs, the credit union must investigate the error and make a determination within 90 days. Within 3 business days of completing the investigation, report the result of the investigation and, if an error did occur, correct the error within 1 business day or as soon as reasonably practicable. Generally, if an error occurs, the credit union has 2 options, refund or redelivery. The refund would be made in the amount of funds that was not properly transmitted or delivered to the designated recipient. Alternately, the sender can require redelivery of the amount appropriate to resolve the error at no additional cost to the sender. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has many resources available to implement the remittance transfer requirements, including a small entity compliance guide, a combined regulation that includes all of the amendments, and a video presentation. The rule becomes effective October 28, 2013. Thank you for joining me at the CU Compliance Connection by InfoSight, only on Cube TV.
Thanks for watching the #1 compliance program for the credit union community. Stay tuned.